Here we go. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are now starting our session, and the grain recorder is running as well. I ended up renewing Zoom because I just didn't have the time to properly evaluate the alternatives. And hard to tell whether it was really, cost-wise, why not kind of thing sort of was my view. And so I re-upped, and we're back in business for another year. And so who would like to go first? Who has something they would like to ask us to resolve or help them fix? Turn your mic on or put your hand up, your icon hand up or whatever, and we'll start.
Muted somehow. Okay, yeah, there's a comment from Merle. And so Merle, if you would like to share what you're looking for.
Okay, I launched a new website in September, and I didn't know how to get people to sign up for my blog posts. So I've been emailing them out to people. So I'd like to learn how people can subscribe to receive new posts, and how I can get a list of those people without having to have them email me and my putting them on a list.
Sure. Would anyone like to start this off, or shall I?
And I'm looking for free things
Right,
that are free.
Right. No problem. I mean, we sort of start with that as a premise, right? Anytime something's going to cost money, you really should have first checked to see if there's a free version that will do the job. And so thank you for mentioning that, because we should actually make that statement at the beginning that that's one of the things that we, without even planning it, just happened to do. Anyway, to go to the question now of how do you create and maintain an email list for the purposes of notifying people that you have a blog post, or in fact, it's by a very similar process. You could produce a newsletter, which might be that blog post only. I mean, I have some subscriptions which only are an email with the blog post text. And I can either click and go to the blog site and read it there, or I can read it in the email. The components that we're talking about are having a mechanism to collect an email address, and that would be some variation of a contact form in effect. I mean, when you think of what's in a contact form, well, this is what we're talking about, except that as a rule, you only care about the email address. And if you limit yourself to collecting only that, you tend to get a better response, because it's so quick and easy just to provide your email address and click, subscribe. So that's the sort of starting point from the user's perspective. Now, what happens is that on the other end, the back end, so to speak, of your site, you sign up with a mail service provider. MailChimp, for example, is a large one. I think, somebody correct me, but that's been bought by GoDaddy, I think?
No, they were bought by Intuit.
Intuit, right? The financial software and mortgage and so on, guys. But there's a variety of competitors, large and small, to MailChimp. That just happens to be one that I've worked with. On the MailChimp side, on a free account, what you do is you connect, in a manner of speaking, the input form that you use, the subscribe form, to the MailChimp service. They provide you with the instructions about how to do that exactly. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's really just, in effect, providing the URL for the place to send the email address to. Then MailChimp puts them on a list and then has them ready for whatever you want to do with them. You might want to pick a group of those people who signed up and categorize them as newsletter people or blog post notifications or whatever. But then you configure at the MailChimp end what you want MailChimp to do just like it was part of your site. I mean, you can sort of think of it as being an adjunct to it. And as long as you're talking, what are the limits, Drew? Do you happen to recall in terms of the number of subscribers you can have? It's got to be 1,000, right? Or something
Yeah.
pretty impressive.
Yeah, I can't remember. You do get a certain number for free, but
Right.
when you once you get over there, free limit, it gets kind of expensive.
Yeah, my experience has been that when you reach the limit on the free service, you have enough activity going on that you should be able to justify that in terms of whatever business or blogging interest you have. And so that's what they're trying to do, is find that sort of happy point where you're now committed enough and getting enough value from this that you're ready to pay. But up to that point in time, you get to experiment and use it. Many sites use it for free for forever because they never have more than 300, 400, 500 subscribers, which is not a bad list. So you still have to decide, what will I send out? Shall I just send out blog notifications of my blog post? Shall I send out the text? What format should I use? They give you templates and other things to work with. For example, templates of newsletters and how to fill them out. You'll find there's also plugins which delve into newsletter capabilities in more depth or have more features. But you're talking about the simplest case, I think, where you're really just collecting them for notification of blog posts. Anybody have anything that they wish to add or have had a different experience? Or
I think Mike might want to say something.
Yeah, had a bad experience with MailChimp last few months. Our sign-up form is getting abused, and we were growing by about 100 subscribers a month. And then I realized that a lot of them were rather hostile email addresses. So I had to waste an afternoon going through and figuring out which of these, and they're not all the same. It's not one domain. So I had to waste an afternoon going through all of MailChimp's help me files. And then apparently MailChimp has a way of blocking these things so they don't come back. But you have to basically build your own database of domains you don't want to allow to join. But the point was that I got from 500 to 1,000 names, largely with spam. And that was something that bothered me, that MailChimp was basically permitting this. And then if you were able to dig through their help me files, you could find out how to stop it. But it wasn't something they were blocking.
you consider using one of those CAPTCHA, what do you call those? Like that front end thing that makes somebody tests people to make sure.
I don't know how to put CAPTCHA on a MailChimp form that they embed on your mailing, though. Basically, I have the sign up form for MailChimp is on my MailChimp mailings. So if somebody wants to, if I send you a copy of one of my mailings, top left corner, it's subscribe here, and it opens up the form, and somehow that was what was being used to add the fake name. So
it wasn't, you weren't collecting them only on your site with a form.
No, this was not going through my site. My site has some protection on it. It was the MailChimp.
Right. So that was where your vulnerability was on what you sent out.
Yeah, but MailChimp turns out to be the best way to get new subscribers, because you basically tell people, if you want your friend to get this, just forward them the email, right? Which is two clicks and you're done. But somehow it got poached.
Interestingly, I happened to read in a newsletter from a site called Tidbits, which is a Mac or an Apple product oriented site. And they had to be commenting on a problem they just experienced with their mail provider. And just made it clear that if you're in a business that depends upon your newsletter, as these particular guys do, I think they had 30,000 subscribers. And they said that the smaller providers were better because they were more attuned to what a small business person needed on their website to manage people and just exactly as Mike was saying, to protect themselves from spam. And in their case, significant numbers of emails were not arriving at their destination somehow. And so it took them some real effort to debug that and figure out what was the problem causing it.
What service were they using?
I think I may be wrong, but I think it was something called Send It. I could easily be wrong. If you were just to Google tidbits mail service, it would be something in the last 2 or 3 weeks. But the nice thing about what they do is they sort of describe in useful detail, not so much the technical aspects of using a mail service, but what they did from a business point of view, you know, what load they had, how much effort it was to do something, you know, did they have a good relationship with that supplier to figure out things and so on. So that's the sort of stuff that they would report on more than just the sort of speeds and feeds aspect.
I have a sort of a quick follow-up question. So right now I've got a number of people who I'm emailing and they haven't subscribed. So do I go in and put in their names?
You can do that, but MailChimp has a procedure, and I haven't used it in a little while, so it may be somewhat different now. But mail providers like MailChimp follow a kind of a code of conduct, of rules, that is in theory to protect the internet from sort of vast quantities of spam. So it isn't just as simple as, oh, let's add this person to a list. You need to be able to show MailChimp that they've consented. And so I think they have MailChimp can provide a mechanism that if the email is not being provided by the person who owns it, then they have a check mechanism that has to, you know, be used in order for them to be assured that this person actually wants to subscribe. It isn't you just building up a list and then getting them into trouble by sending out spam. And so we're all sort of mutually interested in some controls of that sort of thing, simply because it makes email work better than it would otherwise. And everybody suffers from spam in the sense that it's a drag and a waste of resources, no matter who you are. Most of my spam comes from the popularity of my email address and the lack of understanding of literally thousands of people. That doesn't matter what you do to the letters in my email, it's going to end up in my email box. So I get all kinds of interesting financial things, and you know, like somebody who's late in paying a bill or somebody who's booked a holiday or whatever. I get all their details. So spam and such is a problem to be addressed. Now, if you go to a site, a blog like WP Beginner, they will definitely have an article on how do you set up either email for sending out post publication notifications or writing a newsletter. And they start off at a real basic level so that you needn't worry at all about sort of, you know, having to figure it out on your own. It's a pretty step-by-step sort of approach. And then there'll be lots of others out there, but that particular blog specializes in sort of the first steps for WordPress users. So
one caution about WP Beginner is that they have a tendency to recommend their own company's products.
yes, yes. Well, they were bought what, a year and a half or so ago, or 2 years ago, by a company which is, you know, has a whole bunch of plugins. And they actually, I mentioned this a few months ago. I had gone to WP Beginner from a Google search, and it was on a particular landing page specialty that I was looking for. So I found, you know, the tutorial, and I went through the thing, and I thought it made, you know, sense and so on. And I took the one they recommended and made use of it, the free version, on a client site. And then later found out that this particular product, I think it was called Seed Prod, a very specialized landing page creator or designer. Well, that was one of their plugins, and they didn't say that in the article. And I'm sure everyone would agree that recommending your own product but not telling people that it's your product is really bad. And so anytime WP Beginner comes up, I tend to think of that.
Is seed prod any good?
Well, it was fine. I mean, it got the job done, but it wasn't the best. And the other thing was that it started out as a landing page, sort of specialty, and then sort of expanded somewhat into sort of doing front pages, which are landing pages of a specialized sort. And so, you know, it was fine, but it wasn't what I expected a recommendation to be, which is something that had a bit of objectivity and impartiality in order for me to trust it, which is a bit of a shame because that was quite a useful blog before that sort of thing happened. They have at least 20 plugins, so you could never be sure. But in this particular case, if they recommend plugin X and you go to look at plugin X, then just pay attention to the name and look at the name. And if that's, you know, well, I guess you wouldn't necessarily recognize the name, but forewarned is forearmed. Let's put it that way.
Anyway, so Merle, do you have any follow-up questions for us?
So I did try MailChimp, and I know I didn't get all the way through getting it done, but there was some sort of a code that you're supposed to have, and I'll go back and look at it again. I wasn't.
Yeah, do find a tutorial or help article to sort of assist you with whatever the documentation is from MailChimp. I mean, it just helps to have sort of two people describing the same thing, and you can sort of pick up a better understanding, I find, by doing that. The other thing is that there's got to be lots of resources out there because this is a very common activity, and many sites do this. And so therefore, there's lots of people who have experience and who have products and services to support that activity.
Yeah, the generic term for this kind of service is an email service provider, or ESP.
Right.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you very much.
That was very helpful to have the right term, you know, when you're looking for something, because we all have that experience of searching and searching and searching, and then finally the right term pops up and everything just floods out that you're seeking. We have, am I pronouncing your name right? Sahar? Does that sound right? You have your hand raised. Are you there?
Yes, that's my name, Sahar. Hi, how are you?
Good. And yourself?
Good. I have a quick question. So we have a website on which we sell like a lot of courses. It's a little bit of it's an institute website. So my question is that we work on a little bit of a larger scale at the moment, where we have multiple launches of courses now and then. And so to provide such services, we have multiple plugins. So I wanted to know what's the best integration of plugins with WordPress, and one of the big plugins we have is also WooCommerce. We're doing a lot of subscription courses as well, and we have like I said again, multiple third-party plugins, which sometimes cause a lot of clashes amongst one another. So just to kind of like fix a bug because there's a random clash, and then everybody gives us the same answer that, oh, this is a third-party plugin issue, so you have to just like debug it and they figure it out, and then like activate and deactivate one plugin at a time and stuff. What's the best way to reach a higher scale with, I can't say least plugin, but so what's the best integrations with plugins and WordPress and reaching a higher scale of providing a lot more consumers out there?
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
I don't understand it either.
Okay, so basically what I'm trying to say is that for a WordPress website to work right, is it like safe that we have so many plugins to reach every possible service that we want to provide? Is there always like a number that we should think about? Should we not outsource a lot of should we not also get a lot of third-party plugins and kind of check within WordPress integrate?
I think the only way that we can make sense of what you're talking about is if you refer to the sorts of plugins that you either have or would have,
Yeah.
and then we can sort of work from there. But there are plugins which provide sort of generic types of services that aren't much distinguished from other plugins in terms of the services. Then there are plugins which are very highly specialized that only do a very specific thing, but potentially can do it quite well. And then there are sort of omnibus plugins that do like 20 or 30 different things. Jetpack, for example, I guess it's sort of evolving now, but say a year or two ago, it would have a couple of dozen different capabilities that really could be individual plugins or might even have been individual plugins. So all that by way just simply to say that the more plugins you have, the more likely you're going to run into conflicts amongst them. And the complexity of debugging them is severe. I mean, it's just not something easy to do, or that anybody who didn't really know what they're doing would be able to handle easily. So I think in a general strategy is to be careful, only adding the plugins that are really going to contribute something valuable and specific that makes it worth the effort of evaluating them and maintaining them. And that it often is the case that you think you need a new plugin, but the capability exists in a current plugin. It's just that you haven't learned enough about the plugin to find that, or it isn't one of the important things that existing plugin that you're using does. There's sort of a classic area of problems with caching plugins. You could have a whole variety of different caching activities running and have difficulty keeping track of them or how they interact, and their net contribution to the performance of your site. And so, it's generally recommended that you start slowly and try to find one that gives you what you initially need, and then only replace that or sort of move up the ladder to something more sophisticated when you really need it. So can you tell us what it is that you want to do that you currently can't, that you might be able to do with a plugin? Are they the generic sorts of things like SEO or, mail service or that sort of thing? Or are they e-commerce type things?
Yeah, it's e-commerce type of things. We sell courses and people subscribe to them. So we have WooCommerce, and WooCommerce comes with a lot of extra plugins like, for example, WooCommerce and WooCommerce subscription, WooCommerce this, WooCommerce that, WooCommerce Gravity, WooCommerce. Okay, so that's just like e-commerce site. Then we have our WordPress website running on.
Just let me interrupt for a second. So how many WooCommerce add-ons have you got?
I think we got about 4 to 5 at the moment, including like Automate Woo and Gravity and a couple of other subscriptions and some donations. Again, that comes from Gravity. So this website also has donations. So we also have the WP Give plugins, and then they have within themselves multiple extensions and add-ons.
I think that's an example of capabilities in that plugin, which will exist in other plugins you're also running. It's a difficult question sometimes. Is it easier to get that Give plugin and have it figured out for you in a manner of speaking, but add the complexity and cost, or find out if one of the existing plugins or capabilities already exist somewhere else in your plugins, and that you really don't need the donation plugin specifically?
Yeah, in fact, I think WooCommerce is able to accept donations directly.
I would be surprised if they don't, because that's such an ordinary thing. It's such an easy thing to offer when you're an e-commerce, developer, right? I mean, handling money transactions is the core of the activity.
Now, you may have to use the WooCommerce Name Your Price plugin, which is a paid plugin.
Right.
There's a free version to that one too, actually. WooCommerce
Name.
Yeah, there is one. And I've tried that too. So again, like now that one isn't a WooCommerce one. It is just another person, like a person just, I guess, making a mock-up of maybe the one that you're talking about, the one that's paid of existence. So they've added that. And so we do have actually WooCommerce donation too, but it's an extension from Give WP because that's what we were running for the past 3-4 years. WooCommerce is just a recent launch, but then ever since we launched with WooCommerce, we're putting in so many other plugins for pages to look in a certain way, to deliver certain things. And so there's just so many more plugins getting in. And so I'm
So
just trying.
is there someone who's in charge of adding plugins? Is that you or someone
That's
else? Or?
that's myself, and I present it to my team once I figure something out. Like for example, today, right? So before we were having products through pages and then Gravity forms for people to submit information. Now we launched WooCommerce, so now we have products and pages running simultaneously on our website. And now I want to add that Gravity form questionnaire, the questionnaire to the WooCommerce page. But then the only way to add that is through an extension by WooCommerce. So that's another plugin. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a little chaotic. So that's what I'm saying. We're expanding, but then putting more services in there. And at what level, I guess, you cut off when you start putting codes in there to figure some things out, or you
And
just
what's your background? Because it just seems to me that when you get, I mean, how many plugins would you now have running on the site?
I think we have about 60.
How
Is
many?
that 60?
60.
Yeah, is that a lot?
I mean, are you really set on becoming a developer? Because that's almost what's involved with 60 plugins and a site that runs smoothly and performs well, meaning it's fast, it doesn't break down.
That's debatable.
Well, I'm just saying that these are the things that you want, right? I mean, in the sense that make your life easier.
Yeah.
And I guess the question is, are these features really worth the headaches, or is there a simpler way to do this? That's the challenge, I think, because I think you'd be pretty close to your limit in terms of sorting out problems that arise.
Yeah, we also have the MailChimp stuff going on side by side because we collect people's email addresses.
I've had sites with 60 plugins and had conflicts to resolve, and it's a time-consuming process. And part of it is like having children. And in a certain sort of sense, when there's a problem, it's sort of like, well, which child can you do without? And it's sort of like, well, none of them. I mean, are you crazy? So you tend to feel that way, I think, in some respects about plugins. That they're doing a job, and therefore, why can't I get them to work together? The reason can be simply that this is just technically a more complex thing than your level of experience can address. And you don't want to be dependent on somebody debugging these things all the time, right? That would be even worse, a nightmare. Other people here, Mike, Drew, what suggestions do you have?
Well, one of the hardest things to do with a website is to say no to a feature request.
Right.
And with 60 plugins, it sounds like you've said yes to an awful lot of feature requests. So you may have to look at all of the features you've got and ask, is this really bringing value to our organization?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what we got to look at. And we actually did do an analysis just recently in the summer while we were changing over the servers. It felt like almost all of them were giving us a value. But again, I think we have to go back because we keep getting clashes as well.
Yeah, you need the Marie Kondo of WordPress to come in and help you declutter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question, Robin.
Yeah.
Easy question, probably a tough answer. I'm looking after a site that started 20 years ago.
Oh, can I just make sure that we're finished with Shahar?
Yeah, no, but this is referring to her.
Oh, okay, go ahead, please.
You find a short code on a page, and you know your short code is now publishing the wrong phone number or the wrong picture or something, a wrong URL, right? But the short code doesn't tell you what it is. You know, when back in the day of HTML, you'd have a library and you would have a function name and you could at least search for the function name. But with a short code, how do you relate the short code back to the plugin? Is there something I'm missing when I see a short code? Like, how do I get from the short code back to the plugin so I know what I'm supposed to be doing?
Good question. I've not run into that situation before. My defensive mechanism for issues like that is that I sort of document in this sort of style of a log what I do as I go along through the workday. Part of that is because I can't remember at 4 o'clock in the afternoon what I did at 9:30. Why did I use that? Where's that file name? Or which way did I flip that? Where did I put that switch? Where did that come from? I can't remember now. So at the risk of the extra effort being not gainful, I would not be in a position of not knowing where my short code came from, because when I put it in place, here, this is where it's located, I document it. But many of us inherit sites where nobody, it is the rule not to document WordPress websites. I've yet to run into anybody who does any serious documentation as they work as a site developer or designer. So I don't know of a solution other than trial and error, turning plugins on and off and seeing which one went off results in the short code not being available.
Okay, I guess my question was whether there's a debug on your HTML on your browser, or if you can add a note to your page. So when you put in a short code, you can write yourself a note right on the page, and it will still be there tomorrow. Is that an option?
Well, there's no reason why you couldn't in the raw HTML add a comment. That would not display, of course, and at the same time, WordPress's HTML markup on the block scheme that's now the core of WordPress, of course, is all HTML, and those comment tags are how they control the way blocks get created and set up and used. So you have to be careful there not to sort of muck that up. But there might even be a plugin that makes adding comments easy to a text area, because many people wouldn't know enough how to put a comment in to the raw HTML itself. But Drew, do you have any ideas sort of in terms of how you can reverse engineer a short code?
Well, I've been fortunate in the times that it's happened with me is that the short codes have had a at the beginning of the short code, there's been a little bit of an abbreviation of the plugin that created it. So I could tell which. So the plugin author had already thought of this, so that you could tell where the short code came from.
I actually use the same technique to find a theme from the CSS classes used. They might not identify what who provided the code, but they oftentimes have unique CSS classes, and so therefore you can Google analyzes or collects all that information as part of the process. Yeah. So Mike, there's nothing in the short code that is suggestive of identification.
The one that gave you the trouble didn't. No.
Right.
Yeah. The one thing that you can be sure of is that it's a plugin that is either deactivated or removed.
Yeah. No, I think the short code was just a number, and no, not very useful at all.
Yeah, unfortunately, the only way to go through it and the only way to get rid of those is to go through your pages and manually remove those.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a knock on some page builders, that if you stop using them, you just have a site full of short codes. The plugin or the page builders where you get a whole chunk of code means that those can then run, notwithstanding the deactivation of the page builder. So I'm just looking to see if there's anything in Google. Shortcodes Finder is a WordPress plugin that helps you find, test, clean, and get information about the shortcodes in your website post pages and custom shortcuts.
Okay,
Um,
that's useful.
yeah, so I just Googled identify shortcode 'S plugin, and the shortcodes finder is what came back. Let me just
Good
see
to
if
know.
that.
Okay, I have to take a time out and go monitor another a Zoom activity, but hopefully we'll get back before you finish.
Okay.
Okay, take care.
Right, so there was a request from Loretta.
I'm not getting anything in my chat window.
Oh, it was on the website.
Oh, on the website.
Yeah.
Is Loretta here?
Hi there.
Hi, Loretta.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Can you show us your face for just a minute so we can say hello?
Oh. See if I can do this.
So how can we help you?
So I was hoping to get some information as to how I can eliminate or reduce the number of spam that I'm receiving. There's a lot of like Cyrillic spam and it's in different languages coming through, and it just seems to be where through my blog or wherever I have like a request like a request information page. Do you have any suggestions as to how to reduce spam emails coming in?
Well, sure. What are the ways? Oh, sorry. We're talking about spam email, or are we talking about people, filling out forms on the site or that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's both. Both. They seem to be getting through to both. I have a request quote form where people seem to be just getting through, and also through emails as well, wherever I have sort of an opening.
Right, but these are just, in other words, emails that arrive in your inbox in the sense that they're normal emails, except for the fact that they are spam content, right?
Right. Like ideally that.
I'm not sure if there's really anything that's anything to do with WordPress, in the sense that that's something you have to manage at the level of the email client you're using and the hosting service for the email.
Well,
Sorry, Drew?
If they're coming in from the web form on our site.
No, I'm distinguishing between that for the moment, putting that aside and saying, let's just talk about spam email arriving in your inbox. Then we can talk about spam that comes in through a contact form or a subscription sign up or what have you.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think that the email spam problem. Which email client are you using?
Email client.
Yeah, like Outlook or Gmail, or when you read your email, what are you using?
I use Outlook, but I don't think it's Outlook that's the problem. I mean, it's coming through my web mail.
No, but you don't see the spam until it arrives, right? And when it arrives, it's in your Outlook client, right?
Well,
so, for example, in Gmail, when an item comes in that Google thinks is potential spam, it puts a header on the email that says, is this spam? And you say yes, you click, and you'll never see that particular domain again, or particular email address. And there are other things, but your email host has a big role in limiting spam. And it varies widely. For example, the spam I get in text messaging through Apple's text message, program, and Bell, which is my provider, internet provider, is just a question of Bell is asleep at the switch and lets all kinds of stuff through that is clearly spam and actually dangerous spam. Like, people with text messages that say, your CRA refund has arrived, click here kind of thing, which, for some people, they'll fall for it. That is so easy for the provider to filter out, right? Because it's so obviously nonsense. Like the post office never sends, XYZ dot postal dot, Hungary or something. It's just ludicrous. So spam that falls into that category, you deal with at that end of the process. The other end of the process, the second part, when people fill in a form on your site, I don't know, other than having a human testing mechanism as part of the form, which we're most familiar with this CAPTCHA thing, right? Where, is clicked all the bicycles or the highway, signs or whatever it is. That filters out, in theory, some of the spam. What are the other mechanisms, guys, that you could use to reduce the amount of spam? I guess one of the things you could do is you could ban certain domains from using through the firm that processes your newsletter subscriptions or post notification subscriptions, to see what facilities they offer to reduce the spam on the intake side, because they know a lot more about spam than we do. It's a big drag on their business, so they have the same interest as we do as users to minimize the spam by identifying it, and then you're not even sending it to your email client to be read. I've been in projects where we needed to go through the logs for the site to examine exactly who was coming to the site, to try to identify people who were causing problems with things like comments on posts as well as signups. Now, comment spam is, I guess, a third category of risk. And do you allow comments on posts?
Yeah, that's another problem that I have there. I have a blog, and somehow it is allowed for people to comment. If you can tell me how to not permit that, that would also be helpful.
Yeah, give me just, Drew, if you want to take over for a second, let me just check a couple of things on Google. And
okay. Yeah, now Loretta, do you want to limit the spam on the blog comments, or do you want to eliminate the blog comments entirely?
I could eliminate the blog comments entirely.
Okay. That certainly is an option. In the WordPress settings, there is, I believe it's under settings and writing, if I recall, there is an option to allow comments. Now you will have that, so that will affect future blog posts that you write. You will need to change it manually on existing blog posts in the settings for each individual post.
Okay, that's not a problem.
yes, I just Googled ways to reduce spam on blog comments. And in addition to just simply turning them off, or at least as an alternative to simply turning them off, there are ways to handle comments sort of more proactively with respect to spam. So if you just Google ways to reduce spam on blog comments, the first hit is Jetpack, which comes in a free version. As their particular post here is how to easily stop spam comments on WordPress. And by that, they mean have comments but limit the amount of spam that comes in via them. There's also, as the second hit in that search, a Kinsta, Kinsta post, how to stop WordPress spam comments. Kinsta, I regard as one of the best blogs. Kinsta is a large, sophisticated hosting company. And so I find that their guides of one sort or another tend to be well thought out. And I've had no concerns about them recommending products that they sell because they don't make plugins. They're a host, right? So that's one way. But then just continue the process. Ways to reduce spam on inbound email. That would be, but you don't need the WordPress word. And in fact, even here, this particular search, ways to reduce spam on blog comments, I didn't even put in WordPress, but all the hits that have come back, the first 10 at least, have been WordPress, blogs or, pages of one sort or another. So clearly this is a problem in the WordPress community in a broad respect. So you've got blog comments is one, inbound email, and because inbound email doesn't go through the WordPress site, but it goes through the same host that may be hosting. Like when you host a site, the cheap ones throw in email, right? So that's something to consider. What was the third thing? There was email. Ways to reduce spam on newsletter subscription forms, right? Those would be the keywords that would pull up stuff. And I think that because that's such an important activity, for many people, when creating and managing mailing lists for one reason or another, there are bound to be services out there that you can simply submit a list to, and they'll purge it of doubtful email accounts, for a nickel a piece or something ridiculous. And that's because, businesses don't want to send out, email that goes nowhere because it's just a waste of time and money. Plus it can come back on them in a variety of ways. So that's those three areas, blog comments, if you don't want to just turn them off. That Akismet plugin that's by default installed with themes these days. I don't know if you've ever noticed it. It's usually the first plugin in your list. Anyway, that's the free plugin that WordPress recommends to manage comments on blog posts, because that used to be a pretty important, when blogging was more important than it is now, then controlling those spam and comments was really an important activity. And so that's something that you should find lots of good advice that have quite specific ways to address them.
Could you repeat the name of that plugin, sorry?
I'm sorry, which plugin?
The one you were just talking about, the free plugin that was.
Akismet is the one, Akismet. Does that sound right, guys?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Is that's like it's not WordPress, is it? Or is that automatic? Or
It is automatic.
Right.
And it requires that you have a WordPress.com account.
Does it?
Yeah, it does. So even for the free version. So if you want to,
Shows how often I've used it.
yeah, if you want one that doesn't require a WordPress.com account, there's another plugin called Anti-Spam B, BEE.
As in the bumblebee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. It's funny because I always see that Akismet plugin and then delete it as just a standard sort of, I'm starting up a new site. The Hello Dolly plugin is the other one that goes instantly because it contributes nothing of value.
One other thing, Loretta, I might suggest is that you remove your email address from your web pages and just have people contact you through your contact form. because spammers could be scraping your email address off your web pages.
Now, there are ways and plugins to enable you to display your email address, for example, on a contact page or on any page, but prevent it from being scraped by some styling technique, for example, where what is actually in the page is not what looks like it's being displayed. That's if it's really important to you to get that email address out, because otherwise Drew's recommendation makes good sense, that if your email address isn't there, there'll be fewer opportunities for it to be harvested by spammers. But then again, one of the things that spammers do is they just take a domain name and put a bunch of random usernames in front of it and see which ones produce results. So there's the argument that some people make that unsubscribing something that you think you don't want, but that may be spam, is actually a mistake, because it tells the spammer that you're alive at that address. And therefore, you're better off just, in Google's case, blocking it and then deleting the email itself, and then leave it at that and forget about it. Do you know, Drew, if Outlook has a blocking feature comparable to Google's?
Microsoft tends to handle spam at the server level.
Right.
And my observation is that it tends to be a third-party product rather than Microsoft doing it directly.
So like it's Microsoft Exchange that is good at spam filtering and so on. Well, I guess, I mean, that's an enterprise product. And so it's a real value to have a feature that reduces spam built into that mail server. So that would make sense. But you know, your ordinary hosts for cheap hosting aren't going to have those same facilities. But that's why I think, you know, I'm reluctant to give up my Gmail usage, because it does so well on things like spam. At the risk, of course, of just exposing yourself to all their data harvesting techniques, which they're so good at. Okay, so
we have a couple of people with their hands up. I think Cheryl was the first one.
And then we also have Aaron, I think. So do you want to do Cheryl first? Cheryl, are you there?
Hi.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hi. Well, I just wanted to comment on the spam filtering question. Some of those comments that you both or several of you made were really good. Those are some things that I tried myself, from the host setting the filtering levels to like something like a high, medium, or low filtration or filtering to weed out the spam or emails or signups that are coming from fake sources. Yeah, that worked really well. At another point, I had a firewall on my site. That's again at the host level, and that helped. But I found that it filtered out filtered out. I'm not 100% certain, but I think it's filtered out some of the legitimate signups on my for my newsletter, because after I got rid of the firewall, I found that I got nothing during that time. It was like a whole year that I was signed up for the firewall, and then after I got rid of the firewall, I saw emails coming through. I noticed some of them were kind of strange, questionable whether or not they were authentic, but then some of them were authentic.
Did you happen to run across any services which offered to evaluate, you know, a list of email addresses as to their validity or authenticity.
Yeah, but however, over the past week, there has been some very strange activities happening. I'm thinking it was because of the WordPress updates. They're doing a lot of updates. And I started getting a lot. I was getting like about 60 emails on my comments a day. And they were obviously from like some sort of spam machine or robot or something. And it was some of them were in English, but most of them were in Latin. And then there were a few in Greek or something. Yeah, so I was wondering what was going on. I had some other issues where my site was literally down for about a week. So I was keeping an eye on it because I had other stuff to do. But I checked, and it seemed like the plugins were updated along with all the other updates I made, but they weren't. And I just realized that yesterday. So after I updated it's just all of my plugins were updated. And so once I updated those plugins, the activity stopped. It just stopped right away. Because I was going through manually one by one going, okay, is this spam or is this not spam? I would read it and then delete it or tag it as a spam. But Akismet has been usually really good with that sort of thing. And it's like it was exceptional. And so I once the Akismet, I think it was because of that, once Akismet was up again and running, it just weeded everything out. There's also a button on Akismet at the top, at the very last on the right side, that says something like tag as spam or assess as if it's spam or something like that. So all you have to do is click that button, and that's what I did. And not for all of them. I was just fooling around testing stuff. And once I clicked that button, it just weeded out all the ones that I suspected as being spam. So
well, that's actually a good idea to do that, is to tell Akismet which ones are spam, because Akismet then actually gets smarter about recognizing spam when you show it examples.
Yeah, they created some sort of feature last year. It's more kind of like an AI feature where it learns how to detect it on its own. So
yeah, I think they've been doing that for a while, but they've been doing it now more aggressively because the spam is more aggressive, and it's kind of AI bots on each side sort of fighting it out. And hopefully what's coming down the pipe for the sort of those of us on the white hat side of the line will get a boost from the AI capabilities detecting spam more efficiently than they've been doing recently. But just to turn for a minute, Drew, to your comment about Akismet and requiring a .com domain, I don't see that on the plugin page.
No, you don't need one because I don't have a .com. And
right, it just says it's where is it now? You'll be prompted to get an akismet.com API key. Once activated, keys are free for personal blogs. Paid subscriptions are available for businesses and commercial sites. And actually, this is, it's always funny. The first person listed as a developer on this particular plugin is Mr. Mullenweg, who might have been involved with Akismet many years ago. But I can hardly think that he would be doing that now any more than Elon Musk would be personally filtering tweets that are worthy of condemnation of one sort or another. As I say before, Akismet widely used as much as for any other reason because it's installed by default with every WordPress site. But it sounds, Cheryl, like you've had good success with it. And the more you feed it what you think is spam, as Drew says, the more effective it'll become. I've noticed, for example, that with the AI, they're now putting into so many things, that services that we use, that even just something like my using the Photos app on my Mac, because I'm using a keyboard that has Bing as the back end, the AI back end, it is able to keep track of things that I use to describe photos and then come up with those descriptions without me having to fill out the whole thing. I mean, I could start a phrase, for instance, and if I've used it 10 times before, it'll prompt me to accept an existing sort of version of that phrase. So in other words, it learns what I'm doing and then offers to sort of facilitate me doing that. And I think that we're going to get a lot more of that sort of stuff having to do with spam than has been the case up to now. So Cheryl, would you say that your spam situation is more or less under control?
Yes, it got out of control over the last few days, and then it was under control the moment I updated the plugins and just weeded out the plugins. So one thing you need to watch out for is, so how they get you, like let's say it's a robot or some person who's doing this. If they send you one email and you accept, you can either, when a comment comes through, you can set your plugin to let you know beforehand, so you can read it before you approve it, and then it goes live on the site. So you can see the comment underneath the article or the blog article or magazine article. And then
that's when you have Akismet set to require approval before publishing a comment, right?
Yeah. So you can let it go directly. You could say no approval necessary, or you could say approval needed before posting, and then, but so, or you could say the other one is you could approve once or twice or something, and then it will automatically, after you approve somebody, that it will recognize that maybe the what do you call that? Not the URL, but the
domain name. The domain name.
Yeah, it might recognize a domain name and say, okay, this email, this person has already been approved, and they will. So the next time they make a comment, it's gonna go directly live because you've already approved them. You've said that they're okay. They can come in. But that's when they get you. So they might send you a bait, to say, oh, your content is so wonderful. Thank you for providing this information. I was looking for, or they might ask for help and say, do you know where to, as I found that there were a lot of these types of emails in there. Do you know how to get this, how to do this, or I need some help with this plugin, I'm new to WordPress. And if you approve it and it goes live, they can just keep, they can just go full tilt on the spam. So.
Yes, you must be vigilant. I might just comment, or I would comment that your practice of manually doing plugin updates and observing sort of as you go along what's happening is exactly the right thing to do. I sort of shiver at the thought of a whole bunch of plugins on a site just being automatically updated whenever the developer thinks it's time. And then having to figure out, well, something's not working. What's happened in the last couple of weeks that could be the cause of it? And if the updates have happened automatically, you have nothing to go on. I often start out by keeping track of the versions of a plugin until I become comfortable that I have a feel for the frequency with which a plugin is updated, because that's one of the things that matters depending on the work that the plugin's supposed to do. But for the little bit of extra work of sort of checking each plugin as the update process proceeds, I think you just have peace of mind that if something goes wrong, you have a better basis to go in there and investigate. What do you think, Drew? Do you just go by the automatic updates, or are you selective, or depends on the site?
Yeah, I do automatic updates, and my rationale is that the danger of security holes is greater than the danger of bad updates.
Right. And what Drew's adverting to is the fact that the update for a given plugin could quite easily be a security related fix. And therefore, Drew's saying that's important, get that in there. And if the risk is I got to go figure something out as a result, then that's worth it because security has the high value for any site.
And I always have backups so that if something does go wrong with an update, I can always roll back.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we find
Aaron has a hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say Aaron's next. Aaron, are you there? He's there.
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're coming through loud and clear.
Okay.
Show us your face. I mean, we're hardly getting to see. There you are.
There we are. Hi, this is my first time at the meeting here. I have a domain, and I've had a blog for some years on WordPress, which I was using to show artwork. But recently I've decided to change it to be just a portfolio. So you'd have thumbnail images that would enlarge. So that's really all the functionality I need, just a couple pages. And so with that in mind, I was trying with the themes available on WordPress, saying, you know, if there's some templates that I could just use off the bat. But I ran into a lot of trouble trying to edit the blogs.
Interesting that you mentioned this because just a day or two ago, I happened to see a YouTube video from a guy that I've become quite fond of for WordPress instructions on themes. A guy named Jamie Marsland, Marsland. Anyway, what he was talking about, what he did was reviewed the latest theme to come out with the last WordPress release called 2024. And he produced 5 different versions of the theme, one of which was a photographic gallery for, you know, exactly what you're talking about now. And he's done several other sites where he will show you how to sort of create that kind of a site from scratch, and you just follow along, kind of a here's how to do it tutorial. Now, he, in this respect, is talking about block themes. And so are you familiar with what a block theme is compared to just a plain theme?
This is my first experience with blocks, and it's a little mystifying, to be
Okay,
honest.
but if you haven't had experience with the old way of doing things, so you have to learn a new way, whether it's the new way of WordPress or it's the old way of WordPress. Will both of those be new to you, or do you have some experience with the classic themes?
I was able to kind of work with one of the classic themes with, you know, different blog posts in order and things like that. It's just like once I switched over to the new one with the blocks, like I don't know why it's so difficult to work with these.
What theme are you using?
So it's called Pure. It's one of the first free ones that comes up when you search portfolio themes.
Right. But it's a classic theme though, right? Classic meaning that you have a customizer where there's a whole bunch of settings. Does that ring a bell?
I'm not sure, I guess.
if you can keep your requirements for the site to what you've described here, a way to display photographs, the current version of WordPress and 2024, and this particular guide that I mentioned, Marsland, not only did he sort of show here's a way to present photographs in a portfolio using the 24 theme, but I will give you this version that I just created, and you can have it for free, and just make that your theme, and you'll be up and running in like 15 minutes. Essentially, there's really only one basic pattern that you want to display the pages themselves, depending on whether you want, what kind of a grid do you want to present the images in versus the individual posts, each with one image, which is the display version. But WordPress 6.4 brings in a lightbox capability, which makes displaying images very easy and simple. You just, whatever the underlying thumbnail or link or thing is that you're going to click on, then it just brings a pop-up window with the image nicely sized for you. And then you can either continue to, in effect, progress through the gallery by staying with that pop-up, or close it and go back to the, the gallery overview page. Anyway, the point that I'm making is that there are a variety of really good patterns out there for displaying images, because the requirement that you have is a popular one, right? And it seems if you have a sort of a self-limiting aspect that you just want to be able to display images, you're not looking for any kind of other features on the site, then you really have the smallest or easiest to satisfy requirements of a theme, particularly, I think, a block theme. I would encourage you to learn the new way, simply because the new way is going to be the only way in with the passage of time. Drew, go ahead.
Yes, I just posted a link in the chat to the video that you were referring to of Jamie Marsland demonstrating the 2024 theme with the
5 examples.
Yeah, with the examples showing the what do you call the photographic photographer's site, for example.
Well, and he has another
a portfolio site is what I'm trying to think of.
Right. There's another video there in the last few months where he took an existing photo, a well-known, I think, a UK photographer, his photography gallery site, and he said, "Watch me turn this out, copying the design using, the site editor and the block editor." And it was impressive that he could quickly, like in the space of 20 to 30 minutes, replicate a classic theme site in the block theme, with the advantage being that when you see it being done, then if you want to modify some minor aspect of it, you have the opportunity to do that. Whereas if somebody just hands you the theme, well, you have no idea which end is up, or what you might do to customize or adjust the way it works.
Okay. So we have another person with their hand up.
Finish it, Aaron. So is that helpful at all? Are we giving you any guidance that you can follow?
Yeah. So I'm gonna check out that video, and I'll see if it solves my problem.
Now he gives you a link, which when you click it takes you to a page, and on that page are links to click to download each of those 5 themes. The only one you care about is the photography one, and it will be a file you download that's a .zip file, right? An archive file. And all you do is download that to your local machine, go to your website, add theme, and then you select that zip archive file. I mean, you treat it as a normal theme, right? Meaning upload it and add it to the themes available to you. and then you click to activate it, and then you can see right off, is this the sort of thing that I'm interested in? You know, in other words, it'll be easy for you to judge with just those few steps.
Okay, that sounds good.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Drew, who was the person you were thinking of?
It's Erma MacDonald.
Right.
And Emma, I missed seeing your hand up because it matches your sunflower background.
That's a good one. And let's not forget Sarah's here too, with something she just added into the chat window. So Emma, fire away.
Okay, I'll be quick with mine because I think I'll have to come back on the next time you do this. I have a very frustrating problem. I built websites for years ago, and now my daughter lost her webmaster and of course calls up mom and says, please take over my site and fix it. And there's a very frustrating problem on the header. The menu, using the site's been up for a while. It's using the Enfold theme, and the header, they've got a slider and a header, and the menu is the top of the page and the menu at the bottom of the page that stays, and the menu moves. If you scroll down the page, the menu comes down, but when you go to the home page or any page, you can't see the menu. You see the header with little pieces of the menu's words at the top of the header. And we want the menu to show up on the header. And the only way you make it show up on the header, of course, is to scroll your mouse a bit and then it shows up. And I've tried everything to make it onto the header, you know, so it would be there when you actually show up there. And
Are there control? So your settings are in the customizer for the theme? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's where the customizer, and
Okay.
I've looked at that.
So it's the header that's the issue, right? The header is the largest container of this particular thing, or the issue is within the container, in the header container, right? Just off the top of my head, what you are describing sounds like a problem with spacing or with margins or padding, right? That is to say, if something's not appearing in full, but is somehow truncated or whatever, that's usually because something's pushing against it or pushing it off the page or pushing it outside the width of the page or container or what have you. So two ways to go about it. One is, depending on the settings in your customizer, you may have margin or padding or both controls. And what you want to do is just experiment with whatever is immediately, below the component in question is not displaying properly, and or above it for that matter. But you want to look for something that's intruding on or pushing into it, pushing it off. And so by reducing or experimenting with those values, you could see whether or not you could improve or fix the situation. I mean, that's one way to do it. And what was the other way? Just slipped my mind. Drew, what do you have to say?
Well, could you publish, or could you put a link to the site in the?
Sorry, I just remembered what the other way to go about this is, and yes, let's display the site, but it's to use the inspector and see what those elements look like at a raw code level when the page is displayed. So let's look at the site first, and then rockwoodkarate.com.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to share your screen?
Okay.
The green button on the bottom row.
Yeah. Now, what would you like me to do? Oh, share screen. Okay.
Yeah, just display the front page of the site. And
oh, okay. So I should go to the site. Okay, I get it.
I'm not able to reach the site based on the URL that was posted in the
Oh, I didn't. Maybe I didn't put it in right. It's Rockwood JKA. Rockwood Karate JKA.
Oh, okay, yeah, there's a bit missing.
Okay, I missed that. Now, if I can get my zoom back here. Okay, share screen. I lost my share screen. Okay, back here, share screen.
It's always good before you click that share screen button to have the window you want to display foremost, so that when your desktop is displayed, you'll be able to find the one in question.
Yeah, I got it here.
Yeah, I'm still not getting rockwoodkaratejka.com. Perhaps if you could copy the URL from your web browser into the
The chat. Okay, I do.
oh, it's Rockwood JKA, not Rockwood
Oh,
Karate
yeah,
JKA.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I just
Okay.
been so frustrated with this. And after not doing websites for so long and going back to it and say everything is new and changed. And I'm loving the Spectra. I'm learning Spectra right now. I just love it. So, but this is old. This is a classic site. It's been there for a while.
You're talking about Spectra 1?
See this? Yeah, I just found it, studying it, and because I'm building a new site, and I'm thinking, oh, I think this is where I'm going. But up here at the top, you'll see the little white things at the top of the screen.
Yeah.
That's actually the menu.
So scroll down a bit so we can see it.
Oh, I think having a little trouble here with this one. It's on. Okay. I can't make it work on.
Oh, I
this.
see the issue. Okay.
There's the menu. Now the menu's there, but but when you first go in, you can't see the menu. So I had tried to make the header smaller, but I'm thinking I'm not working right. Like you say, I have to probably look at margins or something like that.
No, the issue is that your header text is in white, or your menu text is in white, so it simply doesn't show up against the white background. So as soon as you scroll the dark colored photograph underneath it, it shows up.
Oh, so you think it's just the text?
It's just a text color issue.
Well, we'll give that a try. That would be great if that works. Okay.
Yeah. So I just play with some different text colors.
So I guess what you're saying, Drew, is that that nav area does not have a background.
The nav area has a white background and white text. So you've got white text on white background.
Back up here.
And then
I think it's actually transparent, probably, because that white, or opaque rather, because that white text does show, doesn't it?
Yeah, if you want to try, you can prove that actually by you can scroll right up to the top where it disappears, and then try and select all the text, and you'll see it show up.
Yeah, just start one side of the page and go to the other.
Yeah, scroll from the left. No, don't do that. Go back to where you were.
Yeah.
Go back to the previous page.
Because what Drew's saying is that by selecting the text, you are highlighting it. Highlighting usually involves a contrasting color background.
Yeah, so sweep your cursor over to the left side, then click it, and then go all the way over to the right. Or just select it there.
Okay.
So select all your text.
Oops. Oh man. Come on. Yeah. I get.
Or actually, Drew, how about just Control A?
Yeah. No,
Select all.
I'm not. I think I took it away altogether now.
No, because you've got the descenders on the characters. You can actually see the white text minimally, right?
Yeah.
So Drew's right that now, but my question though, Drew, is that once the scrolling occurs, don't you need a background color in order? Well, sorry, if it's white text, you do need one. If it's any other color, you wouldn't need one. So if it was black text, for instance, it would both show in the big image, right, as well as when it scrolled down.
It would, and it'll look kind of dark against the picture. It'll tend to disappear into that dark cloud as it scrolls down if it's black text.
What about just putting a background in the space between that header and the edge of the page?
The quickest solution to this is to turn off your sticky header and just let it scroll off the top as you scroll the screen down.
Okay. Well, we will try all these things. We'll try the color and we'll try turning off the sticky header, like the sticky. So it's all in the
Some
Yeah.
themes actually give you the option of alternate text colors depending on the background, although I don't know if this theme does or not.
Yeah, I'll have to go in and look at it because I didn't.
Yes,
go
and also
site.
some themes allow you to set conditions on the way a given item displays, or whether it's displayed at all, depending on the page template or post or what have you. But
For example, you'll see that if you scroll the page down, your menu will appear, but then as you scroll, continue scrolling down below the picture, it'll disappear again. It does
Yeah,
now
'cause
it's
it's on
disappeared
white.
into the white. Yeah.
Okay, well, I hadn't even thought of that. See, I can see it coming over the word here.
Yep.
Yeah, there, it's still there.
now,
Okay.
whenever your pointer goes to that I shape rather than the arrow, that means it's ready to select text. So that's what you were missing before. Like right now, for example, what you just
Yeah,
right
select.
stop. Right now, when you see the I bar, that means you can select. The other one, the arrow, is the pointer icon, right? Which
Yeah.
is what you'd select a block with, or a large section. Anyway, I think we
Yeah, I
don't need
think
to
you
select the text to confirm that what Drew is saying. We understand that already, right? The white
Yeah.
text does not show on a white background.
I hadn't even thought about that. I figured
So
everything
check to
else.
see
every
what
plus.
the customizer offers for this navigation menu in terms of a background.
Yeah, okay. Oh, you may have solved my problem. That's great. Yeah, so I'm very new. This is my first time to attend, so I'm very happy here listening to all you people. It's
Now,
been a
Drew,
few
why
years.
is it that there are just those little sort of tiny artifacts, the descenders on the characters, that does show at the top? Well, I guess that's because they've got a dark background. That's why they show, right? The little
That's
tiny
right.
bit you see
Yeah,
now,
they're showing
it's
up
because
against
of the
the
dark
background.
background. Right.
Yeah, it's actually up here.
Why doesn't the I bar turn up though to select that text when the text is white on white background? I sort of surprised by that, because the browser should be able to recognize that that's text.
Yeah, you can
Right.
still click on it even if it's white on white.
Yeah, if I move to here. Yeah. I clicked on nothing. At least I thought it was nothing, but there it changed the page. Yeah.
And
Now,
you've solved
we are seeing that the color of the navigation menu text changes.
Yeah.
From the big block, from the cover block or whatever the header is there, to the gray version, which has when it's on a white background, right?
Yeah.
There's a white version, there's a gray version, and so those have to be set somewhere, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I must say, I wonder whether do you find the effect pleasing of the sort of a sticky menu like that sitting on top of red text, right? Like as it is right now, right? Like in other words, if the problem was solved so that it would appear above the header when necessary, or whatever that top block is, that doesn't solve the problem of when it goes over the Rockwood and Japan and the tagline sharing the fine art and so on. That's red text. I mean, that kind of looks like a jumble, doesn't it?
So that's where I need to take the sticky menu off and just make it like a
Well,
ordinary.
I mean, in your particular case, if you want white text on that background, the sticky menu is just not going to work because you'll have white text sitting on red text sitting on a background, which is a kind of a bit of an unholy mix.
Yeah. Well, never thought of it. Well, thank you so much.
What you could do is see if the theme provides one of these things that appears at the right edge of the screen, where the window where the scroll bar would be. When you click on it, it just shoots you up to the top of the page, and then you can use the navigation in the normal way. Like, you know, the idea of a sticky menu is that it's always available, right? Wherever you are in the page, the top of your screen will have that menu. Well, the other way to do it is just an icon that says click to go to the top.
Okay. Well,
Actually, I'll just mention something briefly in passing, Drew, because that Marsland fellow, in his discussion of those 5 themes, each theme he provided a couple of tips with, just like, hey, I did this and it was cool, and you can do it too. Anyway, on the one-page site, which is essentially like a landing page, right, that have 6 or more sections to it. Without one line of CSS, you can turn the scrolling as it goes from the top of the page to the bottom of the page, depending on the menu use and so on, smoothly. So you don't have that jumpiness, which is characteristic of changing the position you're on a page in a jump, right? It'll go, if you're at the top and you want to go to the next to last item, it'll scroll smoothly down the page to hit that item. And just one line of code. What you just put in that, that CSS place that's sort of, that relates to the page, to the site as a whole. So it's available on every page.
That's great. Wow. Well, thank you.
Anything else there, Emma, that
no,
any
not
other
this time.
problems that we can resolve?
I think you might have resolved my problem. I'll be back next time with another one.
So definitely learn about themes, but make them block themes.
Yeah, I love the Spectra. I'm building a new website with.
Well, you know where Spectra comes from, or do you know where Spectra comes from?
Well, I listened to it, but I'll have to listen to it again. I'm getting too old
If
to
it's,
remember.
if it's the Spectra 1 theme that you're talking about, that's the block theme that the Astra developers put out. And Astra, I think, is the most popular theme in the WordPress world, with millions of users. So you can expect their block theme to be good quality, and it is Spectra 1. And then there's also the Spectra plugin for the blocks that go along with the theme. I mean, you don't have to have either to use the other, but obviously they work together well because they're from the same developers.
Yeah,
so it's a good choice in the sense that big company behind it that's got lots of talent, and they've waited a while to come up with Spectra 1. So could well be terrific as themes go.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think you've solved my frustration on this one.
Okay, you know what you could do? You could put a comment on the Meetup page for this event that's still up, and just say, boy, did I have a headache when I came to this session today. And you know what? I feel a lot better. I've got some good ideas to try out. Let's see if they work.
Okay.
That would be very helpful to us.
We will try and do that when I find out where to put the comments.
Well, just go to the same page that you would have signed up on, right?
Okay.
Drew, do you have that link handy?
Oh, I was there today. Yes,
Yeah,
I was reading comments.
The link for the video, you mean?
Just the the event page, whatever's today's event page is on Meetup. So she could add a comment to it.
Okay.
Oh,
I can do that. I was there today already looking at it, reading comments.
And for anybody who's here and wants to contribute, a $5 donation to PayPal helps us defray the relatively minor costs associated with this meetup. But if anybody's in a generous mood, that's always welcome. Let's talk to Sarah. Are you there, Sarah? Sarah?
Hello.
Where are you, Sarah? There you are, Sarah. Hi, Sarah.
In the dark, I guess.
In your chat, you say, just start a website, magicalcreatures.ca. created with AI.theme, storefront. Now trying to modify the header and the footer. Can't find a way to edit the footer. Any clue where to look for it? Do you want to display your site?
Sure.
for us?
So you want me to share screen?
Yeah, and what theme are you running? Is it
Storefront.
Yeah, but I'm not familiar with it. Is that a classic theme, or should be a block theme if it's got some AI theme?
Yeah, Storefront is a classic theme, and it's made by Woo. So it's automatic essentially.
Right.
And it is the basic theme for WooCommerce.
And that's not gone to block version yet?
No, it hasn't. No,
because the WooCommerce blocks, for at least at the block editor level, apparently are quite well received of late. For what it's worth. Okay, so here we are on Magical Creatures on the back end. And I just lost where that chat window was. So what were we trying to do?
So here, when I go in to edit a page,
right.
It doesn't show the header or the footer.
Right,
so I'm
because
not
it's not supposed to. It's not supposed to do that.
Right, but I haven't found anywhere where I can do that.
Okay,
edit.
so click that particular top left button, and then go down to Appearance. Yep, and then you go to
Customize.
Right, I'm just wondering though, there's a header item. Let's go to Customize then if we're looking for the footer. Yeah, go ahead, click. Okay, the third one there is the footer. Now, the reason why the footer doesn't appear when you display a page in the block editor is because the block editor only handles the content area, which is to say, where you would write or create things. The header and the footer are template parts that actually in the new 6.4, there is a way to view a page with the header and footer and be able to click on either the header or the footer and then immediately end up in the template editor. But that's a bit complicated for you here. That's not really what you need. So on the footer, right. So what is it you want to do to the footer?
Well, so the footer presently just has that.
Right.
And I would like it to have a secondary navigation, and I created a menu with the navigation that I want. And I'd also like to, link to social media, whatever, but I'm not able to do anything.
Right, because right here, this customizing the footer is only to style the footer.
Right.
Doesn't bring up the template part in question to let you edit it as if you in a way similar to, but a template part rather than a page or a post. In other words, the site editor is what you use for a footer, unless the customizer gives you that capability. So where is it here? I mean,
well, this looks like the free version of the theme. Now that so it doesn't really let you modify all that much. With the paid version, you get a bunch of extra plugins that let you do more modifications. So they don't really let you do an awful lot.
Let's just try. Let's get out of the footer, go back to the main customizing menu, and let's see if there's anything. Speaking of templates or template parts, or so identity, header, footer, background, typography, buttons, layout, menus.
What's under more?
Hang on, just a second. Yeah, looking for more options. Give us some money.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
So let's go down to layout and see what they're offering there. General layout. That's not much help. Yeah, this is really limited. I mean, this is not. If for a theme that is not a block theme, in other words, a classical theme, has to provide through the customizer the capabilities to modify these components, right? There's no way other than the customizer, unless you're a developer and you go into the raw code itself, in the block themes, there is a place to go where the templates and template parts are listed, and you just select the one in question. And if you want to replace the footer with a different pattern or customize it, well, just edit it. But this particular theme, as Drew is saying, does not give you those capabilities.
All right. So it's not that I'm not finding it. It's that they don't let me do it unless I pay.
That's right. And even if you do get the paid version of this theme, the modification still requires a great deal of coding. It's not point and click. So this is really a developer theme.
In other words,
whereas
that's like a starter
Astra,
theme that you're expected to develop yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's
yeah,
not
I
like
have
a
another
complete.
site that I did with Astra, and I was able to change those things. So if I
Right.
switched this one to Astra, I could do the same as well. I could
Yes, you could.
fix
Yeah,
the header.
that's a good idea, actually.
And Astra, as I mentioned earlier, is a very popular theme.
Yeah.
And so you could expect it to have as many features as any other theme and be properly sort of organized and presented and everything, documentation and the rest. So Astra is kind of the opposite of this theme, where Astra is saying, hey, we can do anything you really need. Here we've got 200 controls that you can choose from if you can figure out which one to use. That's one of the problems with the classic themes is every theme is a unique creation by its developer or developers, and they can do what they like in many respects. So you have to figure out from the way they've set the controls and settings up how it works. One of the benefits of the new way of doing things is that themes will all essentially be standardized in the way settings are presented, so that if you learn one theme, you'll understand how to do a competitor or alternative theme. That is not true with Astra and Divi and all the popular classic themes. You have to learn each one. Now, there's certainly a carry forward of what you've learned, right? But the exact detail of where do I make a change to a footer in Astra may be somewhat different than in Divi. I mean, because nobody's telling them what to do, they decide, kind of thing.
Right.
So Astra certainly would be a fine choice in terms of key features and capabilities. Are there any special capabilities, Drew, in this storefront thing because it's Woo? Any particular advantage to it being Woo?
Not really. It's just that whenever you write to Woo support for anything in WooCommerce, the first thing they tell you to do is switch. It's probably your theme, so switch to storefront and see if the problem occurs. So people use it for diagnostic purposes, really.
Right.
But it's not really my favorite theme because it's not very end user friendly.
Right. Now you understand, Sarah, what Drew's saying about sort of a diagnostic theme, which is to say, the fewer features it has in some respects, the better. Because
and I guess AI picked it because I wanted to do a WooCommerce site.
Right.
So
but I think the part about, hey, use this for your theme and be a developer in the process probably wasn't clear.
Yeah. Now I'd forgotten that you'd said gotten AI to build this. Do you think the AI would modify it for you?
It's paid.
Oh, okay.
Well, and I tried to get it to do something free, and it was wildly weird, and then I couldn't figure out how to change it back, and so I had to
yeah, AI
go back steps
is really bleeding edge technology these days. It does some weird things.
I find in the use that I've made of it, it can be very useful, but only when the user of it is really on their toes and knows what they're doing. In other words, it's a sharp tool, so not really one to be played with. So I've stuck to areas where what comes back to me is content which I'm able to evaluate for its credibility, its accuracy, and so on. Like I ask a question about plugins, for instance. Half of the information that comes back, I already know. And I'm just wanting to make sure that this is not hallucinations on the part of the robot. It's just not an uncommon problem.
Chat
I had a
GPT
client
is
who
now.
dealt in immigration matters. And so I took a half a dozen questions to the paid version of Chat GPT and fired them through, and then gave her the results. And I said, what do you think? I mean, does this do a better job of explaining than we do? She sort of said, well, yeah, but she was so unenthusiastic. I wasn't sure whether it was because, hey, you know, human beings write this stuff, let's not give it to machines, or it was that the quality of the content wasn't all that impressive. I thought it was, you know, better than you would have expected, but you have to exercise judgment about what to do with the results it produces. It's excellent for recipes, I must say. If you ask them what are the different ways in which to make use of cornstarch in thickening gravies, you'll get back some really useful stuff. But that's because there's, you know, nobody's going to die from like lumpy gravy. So that, you know, makes sense to try it on something like that.
How do I end the share?
Would you just click it again? Yeah, I think you just click it
I
again.
thought that would, but
No?
it's asking me to share. I'm still sharing, right? I
Want me to turn it off?
Yeah.
You?
It's one way. Oh, there's the red button. Stop share. There we go. Now you don't have to look at my
Oh,
site
that's right.
anymore.
The stop share button appears at the top of the screen.
Yeah, I found it.
And
But I've also been trying to find a good SEO plugin, and it seems like every SEO plugin that I put into puts ads all over the place for paid version. Is there a good free SEO version? Is it plugin that people like, or do people pay?
Well, the free version is enough for most people. Not that many people actually get the paid version. Yeah.
well, the other thing is that there is a plugin specifically to prevent those ads, which I think they call them notifications, to turn them off, and so be done with it. But Yoast, for example, I don't find the stuff they generate to be obtrusive. And then what's the other one? All-in-one SEO that's quite well regarded.
Yeah, there's all-in-one, and then I just tried out.
Those are the two multi-million user plugins.
Well, Robin, didn't you used to use Rank Math?
Well, there's also Rank Math and SEMrush, which are for the more technically inclined amongst us. So if you've got any sort of technical chops, Rank Math is a bit of an indulgence almost. I mean, you could do a lot of quite powerful things, but you have to learn about it to an extent which may not be the case with Yoast. One of the things that these plugin guys do, All-in-One and Yoast, that I find particularly valuable, depending on what your site's trying to do, is this thing called structured data or structured content or whatever. But it's a method that a Yoast plugin can add to a site which classifies the content in a certain way, which particularly suits search engines, and produces better results in the process. But it takes a bit of effort to implement, and it sort of necessitates a site that has topics which kind of make sense from a search point of view, to be able to promote them. And so this method of using a structure for the way the keywords work is relatively new in the last few years, but it's potentially very powerful and useful. If you look on the inside of a homepage for a big site, you'll see a lot of stuff that's quite specific where it lists, all kinds of these sort of what look like Facebook values, but those are keywords specific to the way Facebook likes to pick things up for search purposes, or rather the way to present Facebook content to search engines. That's more accurate. I would go with Yoast myself, just because that I'm more familiar with it, but those other major ones can do the job. And then if the notifications or ads bother you, then just look for, ad/notification blocker plugin.
Okay.
And I mean, it's not that big a deal to turn those off internally because it doesn't affect anything else on the site. It's just that those admin pages.
Yoast was just bought by a giant corporation. So I don't expect that those ads are going away anytime soon.
Right. But they've been a pretty reputable outfit, I think it's safe to say. And they're, fairly significant contributors to the sort of WordPress community, and kind of like an independent voice in some respects. So I wonder whether the sort of being acquired by the corporation will have any really substantial impact. Could well. I mean, you're right. It's a potential risk. But you'd hate to think that someone would buy Yoast and then not, continue to run it in the manner that people are used to. Right?
The founders of the company have left and gone on to other things now.
Have they? That's a shame. Well, they've been there for a long time, right? In WordPress, in WordPress years, they're one of the earliest guys.
Yeah, so they're taking their.
So, what is it you favor then, Drew, as a go-to?
Well, I would say my default option would be Yoast.
Yeah, notwithstanding what you just said.
Yeah, I've used other things as well. I've used the one from WPMU Dev. I mean, they're pretty much interchangeable.
Yeah. Well, the job they're trying to do does not change with the plugin, right? People are trying to accomplish roughly the same thing, and there's just different tools and techniques to sort of try to arrive at that particular point.
I've heard people even question the need for SEO plugins, than saying that Google is actually smart enough to figure out how WordPress works, given that it's over 40% of the internet, without needing SEO plugins.
Well, for a long time, it's had the capability of looking at a page and understanding that the header and the footer have no informational value from an SEO point of view, and therefore ignore them, focus on the content area in WordPress, and then within the content area make some other distinctions, right? So they're relatively clever, but when you've got, I think it's 8,000 engineers working on search, 8,000 engineers.
One of the things that SEO plugins do is create make an XML sitemap, but that's now a feature in WordPress core.
Right.
Well, I like that it nags me and says, "Oh, you've done a million things wrong, and go work on them."
Yeah.
So I find
it
that
will not be
aspect of
lacking
it helpful.
for tasks to carry out at their instance.
Go fix that. Go write more of that.
So, anybody else here? I think that's it. And we're sort of at our usual session ending time. So, if anybody has any final words, please say them now, and we'll sign off otherwise. Eugene, we didn't get to you. Did you have a question or matter? Eugene?
Eugene, your audio isn't working. You're not muted, but there's a problem with your audio.
Well, I guess. Okay. Well, he's speaking, but I don't know if he's expecting us to be able to hear him. But you're right that they're not red, which means they're not capable of being turned on. Okay. Well, we shall say good night, all. Thank you all for coming. We've only got about 10 of us left, but.
Okay. Night, everybody.
Take care, guys. Ciao.